So I like that configuration of them really being there with us in this small little space.
Yeah.
So it really emphasizes, I think, the intimacy that these women have with each other and asks the audience to join us in that. So partly just wanting them to remember being in that small space.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to No Script, an unscripted conversation about theater's best scripts. I'm Jackson, and I am not here with Jacob this week as it is our special guest episode. I'm excited to have the chance to share with you a great conversation I had with two Hope College professors about the play Night Witches by Rachel Bublitz. I'll introduce them and let them introduce themselves in a moment once we get to that part of the episode. But as we start out this special guest episode, I wanted to say a special thank you to all of our patrons over at patreon.com/noscriptpodcast for being patrons of the show. You all make things like these sorts of episodes possible, these special guest episodes, the themed months, all the cool things that we get to do here on No Script the podcast. Thank you to the patrons for making it possible. If you are looking for a way to get involved in the No Script community or just a way to be in the know about some of the special things that we get to do over on Patreon, you can head over to patreon.com/noscriptpodcast and you'll find a number of different tiers of patronship. Thank you to all those who have already decided to do so, and we will see you over there. By way of a brief context, we talk about the context of the play and the summary in the course of the conversation that I had with our special guests, but I wanted to give you just a little bit of context on Rachel Bublitz as well. Rachel Bublitz is a new playwright to the show. She's an award-winning playwright. Her plays are produced around the globe, and she is significantly known for telling stories about women and writing roles that engage young performers. You might know her for plays like Cheerleaders vs. Aliens, Ripped, or Burst, or Let's Fix Andy, or The Summer I Howled, or the show that we're going to be talking about today, Night Witches. The Night Witches has received over 50 productions around the world and counting, given that Hope College is putting that on as well, which is why we had the conversation with our special guest this particular episode. But also her work has been performed in Canada, England, Ireland, and Australia as well. She received her MFA in playwriting from San Francisco State University and is a member of the Dramatist Guild and continues to write in the Bay Area, and was in fact recognized as a top emerging female playwright in the Bay Area and received the June Ann Baker Prize. So, excited for the conversation today. As I said, we're going to give a little bit of context about the play and its setting, but also a summary of the play within the conversation that I got to have with our special guest. So without further ado, I give you me reintroducing the show, but with our special guest in the room. So let's head on over to that. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special episode of No Script, an unscripted conversation about theater's best scripts. This is typically the point where Jacob would jump in and say, I'm here too, but he is not here today because this is a special hallmark of our season, our special guest episode, and I am excited today to be joined in conversation by Eric Van Tassell and Daina Robins, who are going to be working on the show Night Witches by Rachel Bublitz at Hope College this semester. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you all for making time to be here for this. I wonder if you could, just by way of introduction to yourself, talk a little bit about your work here at Hope College, but also your connection to this show.
I am directing this production, and I've been retired from the Hope College Theater Department for the last 2 years. So it's been fun to return. I knew some of the students that have been cast, but a number of them I did not know. Also working with new colleagues in terms of designers and student designers. I taught at Hope for over 30 years. I was a lifer.
Yes.
And I am newly tenured faculty at Hope College. Woo!
Let's go.
Yeah, so I'm lighting and sound for both theater and dance. And this production, so it's always a fun game of what am I doing on any given show? Am I doing lighting? Am I doing sound? On this production, I am mentoring a student lighting designer. So our student lighting designer, she's a senior, Deborah Van Iwarden, and this is sort of a culmination of her work, a capstone on her time at Hope. And I get to follow her around and listen to conversations and chime in with things that are hopefully wise, sage advice occasionally, and mostly try to stay out of the way.
Sure.
So it's been a treat. Very fun.
Mm-hmm. Well, especially on this show that presents such interesting design elements to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Excited to jump into the conversation today. I've already chatted a little bit in a kind of a pre-recorded section about the context of the show. Would like to kind of like we tend to like give people a similar footing just in case there hasn't been any reading of the play or any knowledge of it beforehand.
Nobody did the homework. Nobody did the reading.
Nobody did the reading. Dinah, would you be willing to
Sure.
give us just a little bit of like kind of the broad story of this
Right.
play? Yeah.
It's a fictional story based on historical fact that during World War II, there were all-female Soviet regiments of pilots and navigators who flew nightly missions here in this particular incident close to the Eastern Front, that flew missions, bombed the Germans to keep them awake.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there was some killing along the way, unfortunately, but their primary goal was to disturb the sleep of the Germans. And these were young women, many of them, in their early 20s or even younger. Aviation clubs were quite popular in the Soviet Union at the time, so there were a remarkably large number of women that already knew how to fly, and many were trained.
Mm-hmm.
They flew small planes, PO-2s, that only held a pilot and a navigator. So this play is a look at what these women did, how they bonded and supported each other, and flew for an important reason. Somebody needed to help stop Hitler's forces, and so they were part of the Allied countries, obviously. But it also shows the effect of war, I would say, which is ultimately for many death.
Mm-hmm.
And so the violence and the sadness and the grief that accompanies people engaging in war.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's basically the story
Yeah,
about
for sure.
these women.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This play like really is a stunning ensemble piece, at least in the reading. I'm excited to chat a little bit around your experience in the production of it as well. Some inciting incidents that I think really like set off we talk about like oftentimes scripts have like either hero goes on a journey or stranger comes to town as the way that that some of it's framed, and some of that stranger comes to town happens in this play with both Nina and Vera going on their first flights,
Right.
as a result of their training and going on their first flight, the first bombing run to the river very near them. The other strange inciting incident is this fighter plane, this German fighter plane that flies through and is shooting down planes, which is something that hasn't happened before either.
Yeah.
And so you kind of have those two really dramatic new things
Mm-hmm.
to the normalcy of this group, which is kind of regular runs, dangerous runs, but not getting shot down by fighter pilots.
Yeah, I think it's interesting when talking about this play, I think similar to what Dinah was saying, I talk about it in terms of the historical context and the themes of it, and I don't often talk about the plot because I think the themes and the themes and the context and the history of it is the thing that's like the hook. That's the hook. The hook isn't, oh, it's one navigator's first night in a plane and there's a enemy fighter in the air when there hasn't been in the past. That is what happens. That's actually the crux of the narrative, the crux of the through line of the main character that we sort of follow. But it's such an ensemble piece that it's about her, but it's not about her. It's
Right.
more about the collective. It's more about that historical context of the thing. So it is interesting to think about the so often the hook is the plot, and in this I think the hook is the thing that I would used to advertise it is not the plot, it's the context of it, weirdly.
Yeah. And like the connection of these women to each other and the community that they build amidst pretty stark stakes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Certainly the danger of flying planes, but also the the Chekhov's gun sort of moment of like they're all carrying guns with them, not for, defense, but rather because of the stakes of being captured.
Right.
And it would be better to use that gun rather than be captured.
Yeah.
So,
And these planes also did not have parachutes.
right.
Right.
So if you are shot in the wrong place on your plane, you don't have the opportunity to land.
Yeah.
You might be able to, but many times you are
Yeah.
you are done for. So it's a very dangerous mission in that sense. And they flew more than one, when they were doing it every night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the way that it kind of slowly draws out those stakes, that danger, while also showing so much communal support and care through symbolism and through these lines that are all about caring for each other, especially as like Vera is really struggling with this first flight
Yeah.
and wondering like how she's going to do transitioning from a mechanic's role into more of a navigator's role. What has been kind of moments of symbolism that have stuck out to you as you've read this play, or what have you been drawn to as you've gone through the work of putting it on its feet?
Well, what drew me to the plays, and I think it's still been an interesting part of the process, was actually the script calls for us to create a plane on stage.
Yeah.
So and again, we don't have the hydraulic lifts, nor
Yeah.
the budget,
Yeah.
nor the space. We're performing this in our small studio theater that will hold an audience of about 60. So how do you create this plane? So it's been interesting to kind of discover that. And also you could say thematically, what is this plane? This plane, as they say, is made out of plywood and canvas, and then human beings who are also, just as frail as paper, as plywood and canvas, creating this plane, that this isn't a solid mechanical piece. It's both literally and metaphorically fragile.
Yeah.
And so that is something that drew me to the play. And what happens to those planes and those pilots and navigators on those planes. But up until that time, before the missions start, you could say what's interesting is how they support each other, how they also perhaps compartmentalize or tell jokes and dance and sing and do everything that you might possibly do to avoid the reality of what's going to be coming at you in the next hour or whenever. And so how do you pass that time?
It's interesting to watch. I think, so I was going to say, I'm a big sucker for a group of people come together to tell a story. I love an ensemble piece. I love a piece where like we get a moment of them not fully in character first. Like in this, it starts with sort of a direct address piece where they talk about the historical context of the thing, and it's in a very sort of reader's theater, choral reading kind of mode. I love stuff like that. And then we can drop into character, and now we can tell the story, and then we can come out of it at the end to be like, and now this is what you watched. Contextualize. Yeah. I like stuff like that. Reading it, I as much as I adore a story like that, reading it on the page, I think one of the things that I will always get confused by is keeping track of the different personalities of all these. It's 11 women. It's a lot of people. And it's easy to be like, okay, the commander and the new navigator got it, and the girl with the hair, right? So, right, but like beyond that, you get really lost. And so getting to come to rehearsal and watch what Daina and our cast have done, and getting to see, like you were talking about, compartmentalization or the different ways that each of these characters cope with the world that they're in. Is it that I choose to boast? I am the strongest. I am the best, the fastest, the smartest. And actually the way the commander treats that character, she is.
Sure, yeah.
It's not just boasting, but versus teasing, versus mothering, versus taking. If I take care of the planes will take care of my girls. If I take it like this, like all these different characters and the way that they care for each other, and also that they're ultimately caring for the motherland. They're caring for their community. They're caring for home. They're caring for their families by doing this, even as they are underserviced and understocked and under, they're wearing men's boots. They're like all these things that are like little stumbling blocks as well as big stumbling blocks, like not great planes.
And I don't think it's necessarily exclusive to Russian plays, but keeping track of characters is also very challenging when you're reading Chekhov.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
because they
everybody's got
also
three
have
names.
2 or 3 or 4 different names.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
But again, sometimes you read a play and for some reason, unless you can really imagine every character, I mean, I had to make lists as part of like coming up with, although I didn't cast it, I was quite happy that our chair, Michelle Bombi, cast it. I was gone during auditions and callbacks, and so I love it when someone has to make those decisions. It is not me. And she did a very good job, but I did, write down certain qualities, and it helped me obviously get to know the play to do that, but casting wise, what distinguishes this character from that character. But it can be hard to keep track of 11 characters that have unfamiliar names to you, and they're all, or half of them are pilots, half of them are navigators, so it's not like they all have different professions. So yeah, and it becomes obviously much more apparent that there are 11 different personalities out there when you have 11 different actors who have their own personalities to bring to these characters.
Yeah, what a great invitation this play is to actors to find what designates. Especially in ensemble work, that's like such a great challenge to be presented with. What designates you for your moment of
what makes you special, what makes you interesting. It's, and I think the other thing that I think has been exciting, to circling back to the very first thing that Daina talked about, was the making of the planes, right? As a designer, even though I wasn't going to be the person designing this, although when we first started the production process, or excuse me, not even when we started choosing a season, during season selection, I'm assuming that I will be designing something on a project, and then we get closer to production and said, okay, well, actually, no, we've got a student who's ready for this, and this is the right thing to do. But when I'm reading it the first time or two, I'm thinking about it as a designer, and even once I've handed off that responsibility, I'm still thinking about it that way because I need to be able to mentor this student through that process.
Yeah.
So the idea of these very fragile human bodies with these very fragile pieces of detritus that become a plane, and how do we do that? How do we create that in a space? How do we do that in an abstract way that is clear, that provides parameters for success and failure, so that the audience understands what's happening? And then how can other design elements, whether it be lighting or sound, support those? Our sound design is done by staff member Ken Chamberlain, and I was hearing some of it last night as he was prepping it in the space for tech that starts tonight. And yeah, he's got a lot of good resources. He's got a lot of layers. He's got a lot of things, because it needs to be rich. It needs to be our plane does not like run around the space, right? Because that would look, it wouldn't be cohesive, it wouldn't be stable, it wouldn't be grounded in some sense of reality. So how do we establish that this thing that is made of benches and people and canvas and pieces of wood, how do we establish that this is moving? Well, we do it with sound, we do it with light, we do it with actors moving and selling the movement. There's an element of it that makes me think of old school original series Star Trek, where like the ship would get hit and everybody just kind of shakes and grabs the desk and shakes and grabs the desk and like that's but that's theater, right? Like that was that's, we tell a story through movement. And if you hear an explosion and everybody in the room jogs to the left, then you think that something has happened to the right, and like we all believe it. So yeah, I think it's a fun challenge and an interesting way of devising how we solve this thing. So I think it's cool.
And who doesn't like good TV these days? Who doesn't like good films? We do.
Yeah.
But there is something about the magic of theater that is so human. And again, I'm not talking about the billion-dollar
Sure.
budgets that people might have, where everything looks like it just magically appears. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's magic. But it's very on a human scale magic, and I love that about theater. And so I like to see it created. Obviously, I'm glad that we have electricity for lighting. I'm glad that we have computers to run light boards. I'm glad all the technology. But there's some part of theater that still really remains human, and especially what's on stage, and it's just different. It's just different, and your imagination is awakened in a different way. Yes, I can, watching, some major, film, you can marvel at what they managed to do, but this on a human scale remains for me more magical. The other is impressive.
Sure.
Yeah.
But it isn't necessarily, it doesn't make me feel more human in a positive way. And that's what theater usually does for me. Because of the humanity on stage, I feel more human in all the positive ways of being human.
Yes.
After I see theater, I feel connected to my humanity and those of other people. And when I see good film, I cry like Pavlov's dog when the music tells me to do so. But it doesn't necessarily make me connected to maybe my husband who's crying at the same time. But, but that's, it's a different kind of experience.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't think I fully, so yes, absolutely to all that. I don't think I fully realized how awesome it is that being that this plane is made out of people and canvas and and whatever else you're using, but certainly people are in the plane. Those scenes where the characters are crawling out onto the wings to try to get the bombs loose, because the mechanism failed. They're crawling amongst their community on the plane, and that's something that can only be shown in theater, like you're saying. Maybe perhaps there's a way you could do that with film. We'll leave that aside for now.
Oh, I think Tom Cruise does that.
Tom
Doesn't
Cruise,
he? Mission Impossible. Does all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the things I think is the first time that I watched a run through, like I say, it's been interesting to be sort of because I'm not designing, I can have this sort of a little bit of outside third party, and in addition to being a part of the production, I'm also removed from it. And so visiting rehearsal and watching a run through early on, when Daina and the cast had gotten to a point where they could sort of get the full thing on its feet, even at that early point, watching a plane explode was powerful and beautiful, actually. Like horrific in the danger of it, right? If I believe that this is a plane, and if I believe that these people are pilots, and I believe that they're in the sky, and I believe that they're in danger, then when it explodes, that makes you gasp. That is horrifying. But also, I am a lighting designer for both theater and dance, and it is beautiful to watch a plane that is people, that is these and is made up of not just faceless, nameless stagehands. It is made up of the ensemble that we have come to love. Yes, these two are the navigator and the pilot, but the wings and the propeller and the tail are all people that you've been connected to in the previous scene.
Yeah.
Or they're holding something. It's not just them, but they're in there.
Yeah, they're a part of it. They're holding the canvas, they're holding the board, they're holding the broom, they're holding the propeller, they're holding whatever it is. And then the tearing apart of that, even without lighting and sound at that early stage, to watch that break and fall, and then the two that have died standing and departing, that they don't get to come back in the same way that the rest of the people do. Those two are gone. That just even that, without lights and sound, without just barely scripts out of hands, you're already at a place of whoa, that okay, because exactly like you're talking about, Dinah, it's the connection to the humanity, it's the connection to what the loss, but also the beautiful nature of the connection. We have to have the beauty of the connection for the loss to hit.
Right.
So yeah, it's great.
Mm-hmm.
It might be a side story,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
we'll go for it. Just because what you said about the beauty of it, when I was in grad school, I tend to be drawn more to dramatic work than comic work, but
Mhm.
I had a professor, Peter Arnott, who's written tons of books, now deceased, but, would always direct comedies. And he told me that I was essentially an optimist, and that's why I could do dramatic work. And he was essentially a pessimist, so he had to go to the comic side.
Oh, interesting.
So
Huh.
when you say, this explosion of a plane, which is sad,
Yeah.
but because it's created by human beings in this artistic form, which is theater,
Yeah.
that in a way is the positive thing for me. So in
Yeah.
spite of the fact that the themes are, sad and looking at what humanity does to itself, the fact that human beings are creating this also
Mhm.
celebrates the beautiful side of
Mhm.
being human. And so
Yeah.
watching that, and so
Yeah.
maybe because it's abstract, so suddenly an explosion can be both beautiful
Yeah.
and awful.
Yeah.
And so it kind of made me think of this, that I can be drawn to that kind of work because I can still see the positive nature of engaging and creating this work,
Mm-hmm.
because it's
Yeah.
still pretend, it's still theater, it's not the real thing.
Right.
I don't want to be in a real war, but I can stage a war.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, to tell those stories
Right.
is still so important,
Right.
and to kind of highlight those connections with people. But so much. So yes, the way that death finds us quickly in this play is stunning. Certainly will be in the production, is baseline on the page.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
action is happening, and then all of a sudden it's done.
Yeah.
And the characters come back in a really unique, another beautiful symbolism of kind of returning back in different costumes.
Yeah.
And
We have a student costume designer as well, by the way.
ooh,
So-
very
so,
good.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm so excited to see this show. But the way that love continues to be a kind of a connection point throughout this play, despite those stakes, and care continues to be a connection point. I'm thinking specifically of the way the embroidery props are used to communicate care for each other, but then also communicate the loss. I think of the scene when Vera gets back and discovers that Nina didn't make it, and she goes through her boot to find the one specific piece of embroidery that Nina gave her.
Right.
And so the way that this play deals both in such high stakes and death, but also notes community and the importance of community, is that kind of glowing reason why to still tell this story, right? Obviously, we don't want to be in the middle of war, but even in the midst of war, there is care and there is community and there is love.
I think that's one of the things that I was struck by early on in like our first production meetings, our first design conversations, when Daina was officially coming out of retirement to design to direct the thing. And I love working with Daina. So I'm really I'm frankly jealous that I don't get to actually design, because I want to be working with Daina in a different way. It's great. You were articulate about caution, or maybe not uncomfortability, maybe that's not the right word, but an awareness of the current world that we live in, where Russia is an aggressor with Ukraine, and where and generally just an approach to war in general, of aggrandizing war or aggrandizing violence. And that this is from a period of history. This is from a period of history where these Soviet women are repelling an invasion. They are repelling the aggressor. They are defending their home. How is that different from the world that we're in now? How is that the same? How are they complicit in the violence of the situation? How, there's a lot of layers to that, and I think that I don't know if the average viewer is going to walk away thinking, yes, I saw all the layers of the complicits of current geopolitical context in the past. But I think that a director and an ensemble that has that in mind as they do this, whether the audience picks up on that or not, I think that matters. I think that there's something that is crucial to the artistic experience of acknowledging our heroes are still violent in this. I think there's layers to that.
Right.
Yeah.
And I have addressed it, somewhat in my program note.
Yeah.
My heritage is Latvian. My parents were immigrants after World War II, spent 5 years in what were called displaced person camps at the time, but they would be called refugee camps now. And given Latvia and it's, joined the European Union and joined NATO, consequences of the Velvet Revolution, a lot of Europe is very concerned about Russia and what it's doing because there's no evidence that, as far as we think, knowing what Putin is like, what he's done before, what he's likely to do, there's no guarantee that he will stop.
Yeah.
And so reading the play initially, I was like, all I can think about is Putin and Russian aggression. And here's a play with Russian aggression, but it's on the right side, you could say, of history at that moment, because obviously Hitler has to be stopped. So that's the part of me that can wrestle with this and say the consequence is still death, and so in that sense, even if there's reasons for it, we have to question those reasons as we move more and more to the possibility of utterly destroying our world with the nuclear power that we have and the global economy that we have, all the ways that we can destroy the world. And so, I'm not trying to necessarily put that in the play, but it's in the play for me. And so that's why I wrote a little bit about it. And we'll see how audiences respond. And I'm surprised and happy to the extent that it hasn't gotten in the way of working on the play. I was concerned that my own history would make me too critical of the play, and to service the play, you can't be critical in that way. You can question it, but not necessarily criticize it, then don't do it. But I find myself still caring for these women. So it's not that I put them into the box of bad, Russian aggression.
Right.
And of course, I know the poor Russian soldier today is also not Putin.
Right.
He's
he
or she is a poor schmuck, who got drafted. So I find myself able to divorce today's current climate from the play, but I still think there's a connection that we should think about, especially as we are, whether it's involved or helping instigate or doing the American, backwater manipulation, how we've supported dictators or whatever, or not supported them. There's a lot that we're doing that's warlike,
Absolutely.
or connected to war.
Yeah.
In the press material that I read from you all around this play, you talk about it being a historic story with contemporary themes.
Yeah.
And that's right in that vein of like, yes, this is a historical piece, but boy, are we still in the middle of figuring out how this all works.
One of the things I think makes it, one of the things that helps make it effective, I was thinking about this yesterday in the context of, we were talking about the navigators. Our navigators that are on stage, they have to have maps. Yeah. And in rehearsal, the maps that they've been using have been a prop that isn't the final prop, and because it's an intimate space, because the staging is such a small black box space, the audience can see what they're holding. So it has to be something that is plausible. It has to look like something that might be the thing. And the maps that they were using in rehearsal just weren't. They were too big. They were in the wrong place. They were whatever. And I was thinking about the fact that it doesn't even have to, what actually is on the map doesn't have to be something that is super specific. It doesn't have to be the Eastern Front. It doesn't have to be this, that, or the other. What it has to, the thing it has to have is a river. It has to have a river and a populace, some sort of city, right?
Yeah.
But it's never specified exactly where they are. It's never specified exactly how large these communities are. We know that there's farms. We know that there's deserted areas, but like we don't really know very much. And I think that's another reason why it works on a human level. I as much as I like a big story, like a bit, where the whether we have this conversation right, the nuclear bombs are dropped or not, right? Like the world shattering conversation, world saving conversation. I think there's also something really interesting about a very small story that we talked earlier about, that the hook for this is the themes and is the historical context, but the story is of one night. And this relatively, it's a large cast, but it's actually a small group of military personnel.
Yeah.
And it's one night, the story of essentially 4 or 5 planes, and we only ever see 3 of them take off, right? So like, it's actually, as much as it's the big story because it's about war, but it's a really small story because it's about 11 people and 5 planes and a river and the unseen opponent, and that it's actually very, very small. It's intimate in its scope and scale. Even though it's about these larger things. I think that's one of the things that I think helps me keep them personal and not make them villains, right? Is that it's just these people and all they have is each other, and so now I'm one of them. I'm with them.
Right.
Yeah.
I love how the play then moves you really to that particular, right? Because you start with a small group of military personnel, but then you're in a plane with 2 people.
Yeah, very small. The smallest.
The smallest they can be. With still community involved.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, it really does make you focus in on like the lives and the choices of these 2, which really makes a number of the lines truly stunning.
Yeah.
Of like, we know that there is a superior fighter plane in the air with us. And yet we're still going to follow the mission. Yeah. We're still going to work for our community, even though that work is violent work. We're still making the choice towards community. It's stunning how it like continues to draw you into these like personal stories of these women.
I love the Serafina, the gal who does her hair, who was the pilot for Vera, the navigator, who's on her first night of flight. Their storyline of being forced to land, fixing their plane, getting back in the air, Vera being like, this was awful. We're going back to base. And Serafina saying, no, we are going to, 1, complete the mission, and 2, warn everybody else. Because the only way that anybody survives is if we can get message back to the base. But I'm not doing that without completing the mission first. And the contrast between these 2, Serafina is not as brash or as she is audacious, but she's not as brash as some of her other pilot colleagues earlier in the play. And versus Vera, who is so I didn't even want to be here. Right?
I want to work on the plane.
And like she barely wants to do that, it seems like, and then they the moment of bravery of Serafina saying, Vera, lock in, you have to get me to the place. You're the navigator. Get me there. And when Vera decides that she will, that she's going to do that, no, you're right. I have to do this. I will. And then does. I think that's a powerful moment. I think the 2 of their journey together, I think, is really interesting.
Yeah. As you have worked on this play, or as you are heading towards seeing it on its feet and inviting audiences to it, this is kind of a good sort of last question around What do you hope? We talk about like a retinal image. Like, what do you see when you close your eyes and your eyes still hold on to an image, or like when you look at a light and there's still like a little bit of a blur there. What do you hope that like sticks with people from this play as they leave? It could be an image or maybe like a hope or around a narrative or a story. But what is the like a guiding light that you hope that people leave this play with?
I am glad that we chose the spatial configuration that we did.
Yeah, we're in an alley.
Basically, we're in an alley
Yeah.
with audiences sitting on both sides, having it's not that, I guess if you call that deep or
It's 16 feet across.
Oh,
but
yeah.
long. And not that it's a runway, but it felt like in our small studio space because we had to perform there. We have a dance concert in our main theater, a week after we close. So we're designated to that space. And I love working in that space, but I've done thrust, I've done in the round, I've done proscenium in that, and none of it seemed to evoke to me somehow, not that it is a runway, but somehow I wanted some length in the configuration. But I've done something kind of like it with the Revolutionists a few years ago, where it was also, but on a different way. The audience was also on two different sides. So I like that configuration of them really being there with us in this small little space.
Yeah.
So it really emphasizes, I think, the intimacy that these women have with each other and asks the audience to join us in that. So partly just wanting them to remember being in that small space, seeing both planes explode as well as women singing and dancing.
Yeah.
And so so there's not one specific image, but all of that in this intimate configuration that is not necessarily how a lot of more traditional theater is presented.
Yeah.
I think my response is similar, and I when you first asked the question, I was like, man, is it a visual that I want to think of, or is it like is it an emotional response that I would want to be the lasting image? I think it's a bit of both. You helped me think through this though, Dinah. In the movie The Hunt for the Red October, yeah, right. Sean Connery, as this most Scottish Russian man ever, is trying to defect and bring missile technology to the West, but he needs his crew to think that he is a loyal Russian soldier, and so early in the movie we get this like beautiful moment of the entire crew of this submarine singing the Russian national anthem. And I first saw this movie as a kid in the mid-90s. And I was a kid and didn't have a full understanding of the Cold War and the scariness of that and Russia being quite so much the bad guy that if I was 10 years older, I probably would have absolutely had a really firm grasp on. And I remember thinking that was so cool, particularly like men's voices singing the Russian national anthem in chorus. Ooh, wow, what a powerful moment. And I think there's an interesting echo of that in this group of women singing together, galvanizing each other, the for Mother Russia, so sort of the powerfulness of these women, their care for each other, their care for their nation, the way they sing, the way they as a collective are united, and even the way it's staged in that first and last scene. There's sort of these direct address bits. Diana's got some wonderful movement in that, and symbolism of the way they fly together, and then the way they stand at attention, basically. And I think that chorus of women, quite literally a chorus of women, I think is their strength in each other, their strength as manifested in each other, I think the thing that I resonate with the most and would want people to take with them, whether they picture a particular moment or not. It's the literally the ensemble. I think is what is what I
Mm.
would want someone to find lasting.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are both lovely. I'm excited to see them myself. We don't often get the chance to invite people to a show at the end of this podcast, but would you all be interested in like giving some just brief information? This will come out the Monday before you all open.
Yeah, so we open a week from tomorrow, or a week from today, Friday, the 20th of February. And it runs that weekend and the following weekend. There's already some performances that are sold out because it is such a small space. That said, if it is sold out on a day that it's like the only day you can come, it's not a bad idea to show up, because students get tickets for free, and when it's free, there's less of an incentive to necessarily show up. So occasionally, it'll be sold out, but then there'll be folks that don't come and get their tickets. So so you can contact the Hope College box office, and order your tickets that way. And yeah, we'd love to have you come fly with us.
Right.
Yeah.
7:30 evening, and we have
Several matinees.
2 matinees at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's where if we're sold out for some reason, come a half hour early, and probably 5 minutes before we'll say they haven't shown up. Come on in.
Sure. Well,
You
if
know.
you all are anywhere near in the Holland area, head on over to Hope College's website. We'll drop a link down in the comment down below,
Super.
so that folks could just click on over to that and get some more information there.
Awesome.
Great.
Thank you both so much.
Yeah,
for having
thank
this
you.
Thanks for having us.
conversation.
Yeah,
Yes.
happy to do it.
Yeah, this has been a delight. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.